Of course it's muted. Tell me. No, it's muted. They can't hear it. Just kidding. I wasn't really on a hot mic there, but for a second you thought I was about to get caught on a hot mic saying something back here. Welcome to the stream. I have a lot to talk about, and I'll get right into it momentarily. I want to talk about what do I want to talk about? There's a new poll which shows that even if Robert Mueller proves collusion, obstruction, crimes, whatever, Republicans still don't want Trump impeached and removed, which just further confirms why I think that the path forward is just to vote Trump out in 2020. Okay, at this point, we're 20 months away. And if you're hoping for removal via impeachment, it's just, what are we doing? In 20 months, we can vote the guy out. Impeachment and removal would take that long, and Republicans wouldn't do it anyway. So we're going to talk about that momentarily. We are also going to talk about some right-wingers are losing their mind over Nancy Pelosi saying that she would be fine investigating Donald Trump's adult children, obviously not Barron. The things he's doing with computers might be amazing, but she's not talking about investigating Barron. And it's really no big deal. I mean, obviously they should be fair game because they are advisors and they are involved, and Ivanka's sitting in for the Secretary of State, or did for Rex Tillerson. So it makes perfect sense. There's absolutely nothing untoward or concerning about that. So we will talk about that as well. And as people are coming in, I will remind you, live streams are live, different than the videos that we upload to YouTube. You can participate. The best way to do that is by using the super chat function. That's the dollar symbol at the bottom of the chat window. If you have a question for me, if you have a comment that you want me to read and react to, use the dollar sign at the bottom of the chat window. Always great to hear from people, seeing what's on their mind, so on and so forth. I will open up the phone lines during this live stream if and only if, IFF, as we say in the world of philosophy. I will open up the phone lines if we get to 10 new members. And that would be at www.joinpacman.com. There is a coupon code which expires tomorrow night. We've extended it 60 for 60. It'll save you 60%. I'll talk more about that later. Please don't troll the live chat. Please don't troll the live chat. Please don't troll the live chat. It's just annoying and it's sad. It's just a depressing existence to be trolling people's streams. If you want to troll, send a super chat and at least pay for it. And you can also use the join button below the video window to become a YouTube channel member. That will also pop up like a super chat. So we, for example, see that just 10 minutes before I started, Lance Smith became a YouTube channel member, and that's really great. And I'm getting a flurry of texts from Kyle Kolinsky. Yeah, wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to deal with that later. Kyle is on fire right now, and I can't even tell you what it is because I don't fully understand it. I just took a quick glance, but we'll deal with Kyle a little bit later. Okay, so all of that stuff being said, let's just get into what I was hoping to talk about today. The first news story that I want to talk about is a new poll which tells us what a lot of us expected. Most Republicans would not support impeachment of Donald Trump, even if Robert Mueller proves that he accepted Russian assistance, which would be a crime, or obstructed justice, according to a new poll. Let's look at the details. Most Republicans wouldn't support impeaching President Donald Trump, even if special counsel Robert Mueller found that the billionaire worked with Russia to get elected president in 2016. Survey from YouGov The Economist asked respondents if they would support or oppose Congress beginning the impeachment process if special counsel Robert Mueller found a number of different things, among them that Donald Trump accepted Russian assistance during the 2016 presidential campaign that would effectively amount to the collusion allegations that Trump has repeatedly swatted away as untrue. But most Republicans would not want the president to be impeached, even if Trump did accept Russia's help. 63% of Republican respondents said they opposed impeachment in that situation, while just 18% supported and 19% weren't sure. And most Republicans also wouldn't want Trump to be impeached if Mueller found he obstructed justice. 62% of Republicans say they oppose impeachment in that case, while 18% supported it and 20% were not sure. This is why, as a political strategy, the left just needs to forget about impeachment. They need to forget about indictment, although I think you can indict a sitting president. It's just not a political strategy whose timeline makes any sense. What I mean by that is the following. It's March, okay? March to November is 8 plus 12. The election's 20 months away, okay? If you want to remove Donald Trump in the quickest possible fashion, vote for someone else in November of 2020. Even if impeachment proceedings were started today by Democrats, you would, number one, not necessarily have the conclusion to those proceedings before the 2020 election. But more importantly, Republicans don't want Trump removed, even if he committed crimes. OK, on yesterday's David Pakman show, I presented data which tells us that most Americans believe Donald Trump is a criminal. 64% of Americans believe that Donald Trump committed crimes before he was president. 45% of Americans believe that Trump committed crimes since becoming president of the United States. And there is overlap between the group that believes that Donald Trump is a criminal and the group that wants Donald Trump to be reelected and approves of the job that Donald Trump is doing. You can't convince them. It's not a political strategy. And Republicans in the Senate, who are going to control the Senate all the way up to the 2020 election and the 2021 January swearing in of the people that win or lose, they are not going to act to remove Donald Trump if a majority of Republicans, despite Trump's criminality, don't want him removed. And that's why when we look at the new data that's presented in this poll, and it says even if Mueller proves collusion, illegal collusion, receiving of things of value from foreign powers, obstruction of justice, or has a strong case for it, believes Donald Trump has committed those acts, they don't care. And this is why you need to start just focusing on get out the vote for 2020. Okay? When half the country doesn't vote, you can win just by getting people who already agree with you to go to the polls and cast a ballot. Okay? You don't have to argue with a single Trumpist. I'll keep doing it if they call into my show. But it's more for fun and because I'm doing a show. As a strategy to win elections, all you have to do is get people who say, yeah, I think Trump's a criminal and I'm progressive or I'm moderate or I'm liberal or whatever, and I don't approve of this, but I don't usually vote. Get them to go to the polls. You cannot rely on any impeachment. And that's why my position from the beginning has been investigations that are going on are legal and they are warranted and there is probable cause. They should continue. When we have the results, we should evaluate the results. If the correct thing on the basis of those results is to start impeachment proceedings, then start the impeachment proceedings. But it is not a strategy. You can't run on it. And it's a loser's game to simply be counting on that as a way to remove Donald Trump. And I hate to say this because it's so embarrassing. I mean, it truly is embarrassing. There's a very good chance Trump gets reelected in 2020. I'm not trying to game you in order to get you to vote when you otherwise don't want to. The way that the Electoral College works, combined with half the country not voting, combined with the fact that Trump seems to have this immutable base of 35% support, means that there is a very, very good chance that Donald Trump is going to be reelected in 2020. So I don't want to be playing the I told you so game on whatever date in November of 2020. This is going to come down to turnout. This is winnable. But we can't be waiting around for Republicans to get a conscience and then choose to remove Donald Trump. It's just not going to work. Okay, the second story I wanted to talk about today, and by the way, this is a live stream. It's really live unless you're watching a replay. If you have questions for me, if you have comments for me, if you want me to address your concerns, it's as simple as using the $ at the bottom of the chat window. Use the $. It will pop up your question or comment on screen. I will read it. I will thank you. And then I will answer it or comment on it if it's a comment rather than a question. I am also ready to open the phone lines to you at 617-830-4750 as soon as we get 10 new members, either on our website at joinpacman.com or via YouTube. And I will start thanking people. We already have a few people who have signed up. And I do want to mention that we have just an extraordinary coupon code available, which expires tomorrow night at midnight. We have reached 600,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And because there's a 6 in that, we decided to do a 60% discount off of membership. Okay. The coupon code is 60 for 60. That's 60 FOR 60. If you take a $6 membership and apply the coupon code, you're talking about $2.40 a month. If you take the coupon code and apply it to a $60 membership, that's only $24 for the year, $2 a month. This is mostly how the program is funded. People know that our YouTube ad revenue has been all over the map ever since Adpocalypse in April of 2017, where we lost like 99.8% of our YouTube revenue for a period of several weeks. It's not a big ask. We're talking about a couple bucks. I know a lot of people in the audience can afford that. And if you can, go to davidpacman.com/membership, use the coupon code 60 for 60. I will thank you. We will all have a great time. And then I will open up the phone lines, and it's a win-win-win for everybody. Okay, Nancy Pelosi is okay investigating Donald Trump's children, pointing out that they are advisors to the president. Republicans are going absolutely bonkers about this, and I truly don't know why. There is just nothing even remotely controversial about this. We're not talking about going after children. We are talking about investigating the possible lies, wrongdoing, and criminality of adults who, number one, have very creatively circumvented anti-nepotism laws. Number two, have not been confirmed by the United States Senate. Number three, have, at least as far as Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner are concerned, have security clearances that they should not even have. And there is absolutely no reason whatsoever that they should be off limits from investigation. I am willing, I'm starting to channel Steven Crowder, any argument that you believe is a strong argument for having Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump and Don Jr. and Eric Trump be off limits, I want to hear, okay? Leave me a voicemail, send me a tweet, send me an email, send a super chat, whatever, because I have examined this over the last couple of hours from a legal standpoint. I have examined it from a logical standpoint, and I can think of no reason why we should say that Donald Trump's children are off limits. Not talking about Barron, okay? I'm talking about the ones that are that are advisors who have not been Senate confirmed, shouldn't have security clearances, but somehow do. Let's see the content of the article here. Some House Democrats have expressed reservations about going after President Donald Trump's children in their oversight investigations into his administration. Doesn't make any sense. There should be no reservations. And fortunately, as this article says, Speaker Nancy Pelosi is not one of them. They are investigating certain subjects. Whoever falls into that net falls into the net. There is this hilarious series of comments I saw on Twitter from Republicans saying, can you imagine if Republicans went after Sasha and Malia? No. I mean, just no. It's a mind-numbingly stupid analogy. Sasha and Malia were not adults. They were not involved in Barack Obama's administration, period. I almost feel like there doesn't need to be anything else said. They simply are not what Donald Trump Jr. is, or what Ivanka Trump is, or what Eric Trump is, or what Jared Kushner is, and it makes absolutely no sense. The House Intelligence, Judiciary, Oversight, and Financial Services Committees have all opened up investigations touching on Trump's personal finances and how they may have influenced his campaign and administration. The intelligence panel has also reopened its probe into Russian interference in the 2016 election and possible ties to Trump's campaign. Pelosi said any investigation that involves Trump's children, such as daughter Ivanka Trump or her husband, Jared Kushner, would be prompted by allegations from other witnesses and in media reports that they have violated the law or ethical norms, not by their familial relationship to the president. Obviously, they're not going to be investigated because they are Trump's family members. They are going to be investigated because they are adults who are involved in his administration, period. They are advisors to the president. They have security clearance. This is not Trump's children at home. It's not Barron. I don't even know if Trump talks to that Tiffany Trump. I believe she's an adult. She's in her early 20s, I think. I'm just going from memory. It's not clear Trump likes her, but she, as far as we know, has not been involved in anything related to the administration. So if she committed a crime, it would be like a local law enforcement matter for police to investigate. Jared, who's not Trump's biological son, of course, Ivanka, Eric, and Don Jr. are involved in the administration. They have security clearances. There is nothing controversial here. The president indicated this week that he plans to cooperate, at least to some extent, with some of the Democrats' investigations. I cooperate all the time with everybody, but he also referred to the federal and state probes into his political and financial world as a political hoax. Trump has mostly spoken negatively about the sweeping investigations. The list of federal, state, and congressional investigations into his 2016 campaign and business dealings are all, quote, bullshit, he proclaimed before a crowd at CPAC over the weekend. Earlier this week, the White House wrote in a letter to House Oversight and Reform Chairman Elijah Cummings that it will not cooperate with this panel's probe into the administration's security clearance policy. I feel like we are living in a world that is it's idiocracy. It is backwards. These are just basic things. These are legal investigations. Every legal argument that has been made against the investigations has fallen flat. Robert Mueller is operating in completely within his legal capacity. He is a Republican. He is not any kind of plant or shill or someone that the Democrats have conjured up in order to punish Trump for things that he didn't really do wrong. There have been no leaks from Robert Mueller. There have been allegations about Peter Strzok being a partisan in his role as someone who was involved in the investigation on Mueller's team. Mueller handled it completely correctly. As soon as it was revealed that Peter Strzok sent these politically charged text messages, he was dismissed. And of course, there's no evidence that his political bias influenced the investigation in any way. And by the way, breaking news, everybody who's involved in the investigation has personal political views. There's no way to avoid that. There is no way either, no matter what, you are going to have people with a political perspective that are participating in investigations. The question is, are they allowing those politics to supersede in importance the facts of the investigation, the process which they have to adhere to? That's it. And if you don't have evidence of that, what are we even really talking about? And it is truly disgusting that Republicans continue to insist on this stuff. And then now this new stuff about they're targeting children, they're targeting family, they are targeting people who are advising Trump, who are sometimes filling in for the Secretary of State, as Ivanka Trump did for Rex Tillerson. They have not been confirmed by the Senate. They are a national security risk by virtue of the security clearances that they have, even though they shouldn't. Period. That's it. Nancy Pelosi's right. This isn't a cheerleading of Nancy Pelosi unilaterally or unconditionally. She's just right, and there's no good argument against it. Okay, I want to thank a couple of people that have done some really great things over the last few minutes. Cyrus Palmer is a new YouTube channel member who used the join button right down there. And that is 1 out of 10. When we get to 10, I will open up the phone lines. Janet Campbell is a new YouTube channel member, also using the join button down below. Thank you very much. I also want to say thanks to Tyrone Thompson, who has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership using the coupon code 60for60. He saved 60%, and we are now 3/10 of the way to me opening up the phone lines. Also want to welcome Michael Suffern, who is a new David Pakman Show member, paying full price, by the way. Thank you very much, Michael. That is 4 out of 10. And Amanda Blakely has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership using the coupon code 60for60. She's paying $2.40 a month, and she is new member number 5 of the evening. When we get to 10, I will open up the phone lines. If you are just joining me, we have been talking about a new poll, which tells us that even if Robert Mueller credibly demonstrates that Donald Trump received things of value from Russia for the purposes of winning the presidency, a crime, even if he obstructed justice, almost 2/3 of Republicans wouldn't want Trump removed from office, which is not surprising, but it is disturbing. We've also been talking about Nancy Pelosi saying she's fine investigating Donald Trump's adult children who are his advisors. And of course, she should be. And there's no good reason to be against it. We also are, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say 60 for 60, this is a program that is mostly funded by our audience. We have something called membership, which you can sign up for at davidpakman.com/membership. The normal rates I find to be very, very reasonable. They are $6 for 1 month or $60 for 1 year. However, I understand that is a lot of money for people in terms of money that they have available to support independent media. So in celebration of having achieved 600,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, and by the way, we're already at like 603 or 604,000, we have a 60% discount off of membership available, which expires tomorrow night at midnight. The code is 60 460, 60 FOR60. This is, for a lot of people in our audience, not a lot of money. You'll feel good if you're supporting the work that we do. YouTube revenue is unpredictable. Ad revenue is unpredictable. Membership allows us to build a steady stream of income, which allows us to do whatever stories we want to do. We don't have to worry about, are they work safe stories? Are they ad safe stories? It simply doesn't matter. We do what we want because of membership. And if you can afford $2 a month, I'm asking for your support. That allows us to do the show for everybody who can't afford to pay anything. And that's that. I love thanking members. The coupon code is 60 for 60. We are we are 6/10 of the way there because Adrian Aller has also now signed up. And 4 more members, and I will open up the phone lines, and I look forward to hearing from you. Torianto Johnson has sent the first super chat of the evening, $1.99. Torianto says, Blacks for Bernie, not Harris, because of Breakfast Club interviews. Yeah, I saw Kamala Harris's interview on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God and other people. I don't remember who else is on that show. And I mean, listen, I don't necessarily have a problem with anything Kamala Harris said in the interview on principle. I don't have a major problem with it. Actually, maybe I shouldn't say that. In the pieces that I saw, I didn't have a major disagreement on a lot of the policy. I just don't find her credible, right? Now that she says, oh, she smoked pot and I don't even remember what else. But as Attorney General of California, she was singing a very different tune and making a lot of different arguments in terms of how she carried out her duties as Attorney General. You could say, well, that was just the law, and that's what she had to do. Yes and no. There's prosecutorial discretion. The Attorney General sets the agenda in terms of what prosecutorial and law enforcement, not law enforcement, but justice system priorities are going to be. The idea that she's all about pot and she smoked pot, and I think she joked about being partially Jamaican or whatever. It didn't sit with me as credible, and it didn't sit with me as genuine. So I tend to agree with you, Torianto. Okay. BizWiz sends a $9.99 super chat. Financial advisors tell us that to be financially stable, we must be debt-free. Shouldn't this apply to our economy, regardless of job growth? How can our economy be healthy if we're so deep in debt? No. Okay, so let's see if we can break this down in its component parts. The first thing you're making, BizWiz, is an analogy between being debt-free as important for individuals to being debt-free as important to the country. There are massive differences between an individual and an economy. Number one, it's not a foregone conclusion that our priority should be to be debt-free. Let me give you an example. If mortgage rates are 3.5% and you have $200,000 and you could buy a house for $200,000, you're debt free. Are you better off than if, for example, you put 20% down on that $200,000 house, which is $40,000? You get a mortgage for $160,000 at 3.5%, and you take the 160 and you put it in index funds, which historically over long periods of time return 8%. You're paying 3.5% on your mortgage, but over time you're going to earn 8% on the stocks and bonds, on the index funds, and mortgage interest is tax deductible. Are you better off financially by not having the debt and just buying the house cash for $200,000? The answer is no. Why do I bring this up before we even get into the further analysis? Because your initial assertion that it's always better to be debt free is not necessarily true. There are many situations in which one would opt for debt because they have calculated that it makes more sense in the long term. So that's number one. It's not always better as an individual to be debt free. Number two, individuals can't print money. Individuals can't set monetary policy. Individuals suffer very different consequences if they delay paying debts that they have. So there is simply no analogy between an individual being in debt and a country being in debt. And then beyond that, there's modern monetary theory. There's all sorts of other stuff that I'm not going to bore the audience with right now. But I completely disagree with your framing, BizWiz. But I appreciate you sending a super chat for $9.99. Lance Smith sends a $4.99 super chat. What are some of your favorite bands that you listen to most? And did you listen to the Argentine rock band Soda Stereo? Yes, I love Soda Stereo. Favorite bands? I don't know. I mean, this is like saying what's my favorite book, but there's a lot of Argentinian bands that are really good. I'll mention some of them since I think it's more likely people in the live audience haven't heard of since they're not from Argentina. There's a Argentinian reggae band called Los Pericos, who are really, really good. There's an Argentinian reggae band called Los Cafres that are awesome. There's an Argentinian sort of ska band called Los Fabulosos Cadillacs, which means the Fabulous Cadillacs. There's so many good Argentinian bands. I can't even remember them all. But those are some. That's probably enough for hours of fun on YouTube, checking out some of their Los Auténticos Decadentes, another really good band. Okay, let's say another couple thank yous here. We're looking for 10 new members, and we will open up the phone lines. Gregory Kennemone, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is number 7 this evening, and Paige Ramey is number 8 this evening. If people want to call in and talk to me, by the way, we've already recorded some live calls that are going to be going up over the weekend. There's a guy named Jimmy from Philly, Trump supporter, who called in. He was furious with me. I mean, unhinged fury. And he was furious about my characterization of Trump supporters. And he ended up hanging up on me. It's a crazy, crazy phone call. We're going to call it something like Furious Trumpist is Completely Unhinged. That's already been recorded. It's going to go up over the weekend. And I welcome calls from Trumpists. So if you want me to open the phone lines, 2 more members, and I will do that. Membership is very, very cheap. It supports the work that we do. You go to www.joinpacman.com, pick your membership, $6 a month, apply the coupon code 60 for 60, 60 FOR 60. It'll drop it to $2.40 a month. That's a damn good deal. If you pick a yearly membership and apply the coupon code 60 for 60, it will drop the $60 a year membership to just $24 for the year. Okay? That's $2 a month. That is not a lot of money. And it goes directly, all but like a 3% payment processing fee. It goes directly towards funding the program and doing a lot of very interesting and cool things. By the way, I'm not even supposed to announce this yet because it's been tentative for months, but we are very close to finalizing the details for a debate between me and a very, very prominent right winger. I think you're going to like this. In fact, I think that the punditry sphere is going to go bonkers once I announce who I'm tentatively debating. If we get to 10 new members tonight, I'll open up the phone lines. If we get to 15, I'll tell you who that person is. And I think that people will be titillated and fascinated by who I might be debating. Okay, so let's make that happen. Okay, let's see. Jacob sends a $5 super chat. What are your thoughts on Beto O'Rourke? I don't know what to believe with his voting record. Do you think he has genuinely gotten more progressive? You know, I don't really care. I just don't. I don't find myself excited by the prospects of a Beto O'Rourke presidential run. I think that it is potentially problematic that he just lost and now he wants to be president. I know losing barely in a red state like Texas for the Senate is very different than then running for president. He has red state credentials. He has what would we call them? Running against Ted Cruz before credentials, which may be useful in 2020. I'm just not finding myself super excited by the possibility of a Beto O'Rourke candidacy. I don't know why. Do I believe that he has gotten more progressive? Yeah, I think so. Do I think that probably some part of it has been calculated? Yeah, I think so. And bottom line, I think that there are much more exciting candidates. Jeff Rogers is a new member. That's number 9 this evening. Okay, thank you, Jeff. If we get one more member, I will open up the phone lines. If we get 6 more members, I will tell you about the very prominent right winger who has tentatively agreed to debate me. And I think that that will be very exciting for a lot of people. One more member, phones, 6 more members, we get to 15. I'll tell you who I might be debating. Okay, Elias Tarachis, he says, Spanish pronunciation, thoughts on candidate Biden. Listen, if Biden's the nominee, I'm voting for him. Do I like Joe Biden personally? Absolutely. Do I think Joe Biden is an excellent debater and would crush Trump in debates? Absolutely. Am I thrilled about the idea of Joe Biden, one of the more centrist potential candidates, immediately being the front runner in the sense that he's polling in the lead ahead of Bernie, even though he hasn't declared? Yeah, it's not the most exciting thing. Am I an identity voter? I am not, but I do have some concerns about running another 70-something white guy who's a centrist against Donald Trump, because I wonder about the politics of it, not the identity element. But I would obviously vote for the guy, and I like Joe Biden a lot, and I think that he would absolutely crush Trump in debates. I think Biden would do way better in debates against Trump than Bernie Sanders, to be quite honest. Why wouldn't I be honest? Of course. Yeah, I mean, politically, he's not the most exciting. And some of his dabbling with Republicans recently has been not the most thrilling to me. Jackson sends a $5 super chat. Have you heard of the fair tax? What are your thoughts on it? Personally, I'm skeptical as it seems to be a regressive tax. I'm not for the fair tax. I'm not for flat taxes. I've made that very clear. And I don't think it's good for the economy. I don't think it is the fairest tax. I mean, it's called a fair tax. I don't actually think it's that fair. So no, I'm not for it, Jackson. Murphy, did you see Joe Rogan with Tim Pool and Jack Dorsey? Would you consider doing a debate on Joe Rogan? I saw 5 minutes of it. I had too much other stuff to do. And the 5 minutes I saw were Tim Pool telling the Twitter lawyer that they mostly ban conservatives. And the Twitter lawyer saying, you're basing that off of, I think, like 20 people or something like that. Didn't see anything else. I would do a debate on Rogan. I would be glad to appear. I would love to talk with Joe Rogan about how there's a lot of mischaracterization of the left happening on his program. And I would do it with total peace and love and respectfully and politely. But that's something I would be very interested in talking about with him. David Alt is a new YouTube member, which gets us to 10 new members this evening. And that means I'm going to open up the phone lines right now. You are able to call in if you want to participate on the show at 617-830-4750, 617-830-4750. When I promise it, I do it. And I also want to thank, if we get to 15 new members, I'll announce who I'm scheduled to be debating. Let me see here. James Dorn is new member number 11 of the evening. Mario Claudio is new member number 12 of the evening. And Luther Yee is new member number 13 of the evening. As I said before, if we get to 15 new members, I will tell you the prominent right winger that I am supposedly very close to finalizing a debate with, which I think will be very exciting for a lot of people. Okay, 617-830-4750. Let's see if we can get the phone lines running here. I actually don't know if things are configured correctly. Ah, they are. Okay, good. Before I start taking calls, people can keep calling in. I'll deal with a couple other super chats here. Frenic32 says Tim Pool is a hack. BizWiz, petition for David Pakman to go live on general election night. I know you want to kick back and have a drink that night, but why not do both? We've got plenty of time to figure that out. And William Slattery sends a $1.99 super chat. Master Sleuth 91, should we start talking about fair markets instead of free markets? Free market is a rather question-begging, free for whom, and be vacuous. Inanimate objects can experience freedom. Yeah, I mean, fair markets are what social democracy is. It's a mixed economy. It's capitalism that is well regulated, and it sets a floor, and it sets sort of a soft ceiling in some ways with higher taxes on the very rich. And I think fair markets are basically equivalent to social democracy. Platypi says, big love from Australia. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to go to the phones. 617-830-4750. Let me get everything I need here set up to take phone calls. You should see, I was going over today. We have a great new phone system, which includes caller ID, and it allows me to make notes about callers so that when I see them pop up, I can either avoid them if they're duds, or if they tend to argue with me or are Republicans, I'm more likely to go to them because I like to mix it up. I'm not afraid of that. And I was reviewing some of the notes we have in the system about callers in general, and there are some really, really funny ones, which maybe I will share with you at some point in time. Okay, let's go to our first caller from the 610 area code. Caller from 610. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
David, is that me?
That is you, my friend.
Hi, David. This is Justin from Pennsylvania.
Hey, Justin, what's going on?
Yeah, I wanted to turn things a little bit more towards disaster thinking and that sort of stuff because of the recent tornadoes in Alabama. I think it was Alabama, or Georgia. I was thinking regarding detection and that sort of stuff as a way to maybe fight it because I've noticed a lot that like big bass sounds affect water atoms a little bit more than they do affect air atoms. But I mean, I think that would be a way to disrupt this kind of weather systems a little bit more.
Justin, let me see if I understand because I don't want to miss any of what you're saying. You're saying that you're concerned about tornadoes and you're thinking about using bass sounds to to dissolve the tornado, or what's your idea?
Yeah, large amplified sound waves to nullify wind cyclones. I think
where did you get the idea that could work? I've never heard of that before.
I've always noticed that water is affected a little bit more by sound than air, and I've been to many different concerts and been near a lot of speakers. And when it's really up, the air is moved a lot more than some people notice.
Yeah.
And if you turn up the bass portion, you can direct it a certain way. I think
Justin, how big of a speaker do you think you would need to dissolve a tornado?
I'm not exactly sure. That's one of the things. Pardon that. I haven't calculated. I'm just thinking outside the box and
it's definitely different.
Question.
It sounds off the wall to me, but I think it should be researched. And if the math works out, then that's interesting. But I've never heard of such a thing, and I would be a little bit skeptical until we have more information. Really appreciate the call. Thank you very, very much. Let's go next to our caller from the 770 area code. Who's calling from 770 today?
Hey, David. I think that might be me.
That is you. Who's this?
This is Anderson in Atlanta.
Hey, Anderson, what's going on?
Hey, so you've mentioned a few times, even today, Joe Biden being more of a centrist candidate, and that it makes you less enthusiastic. And it seems that Democrats are in a position where they're facing playing to the center and risking enthusiasm, or going more to the left and risking not polling Trump voters over and possibly reelecting Trump. So, for example, David from an editor at The Atlantic had said that Democrats will need a candidate that appeals to Trump's weakest supporters to gain new votes and to avoid swinging too far to the left. So I would ask you, would you agree with this?
No.
Or is this an opportunity to swing for the progressive fences?
Yep, I think so. Two things. Number one, I think that Donald Trump's current level of support is very close to his baseline level of support. Like he's, sort of dithering between 38 and 41% approval. I think that Trump's rock solid, committed, cognitively dissonant, we're with him no matter what base of support is probably 34, 35%. So number one, I don't think that there are many Trump voters that would even be convincible. Number two, I think that get out the vote is a much more efficient strategy than convincing Trump voters anyway. I've seen no evidence that there's going to be an advantage to trying to convince Trump voters from 2016 to change their vote than just getting people who didn't vote at all out to the polls. And number three, I've still seen no evidence that Democrats are better off when they go to the middle rather than to the left. Let's go to the left because going to the middle hasn't really worked super well.
Awesome. Thanks for your take. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for the call. Okay, I'll take more calls momentarily at 617-830-4750. Lance Takata is the latest David Pakman Show member at davidpakman.com/membership. That's 14. If we get one more new member, I will tell you who I am very close to having a debate scheduled with, a very prominent right winger. I think people would be interested by that. Couple super chats before I go to the phones. DeBarnu says, you mentioned possibly debating Jesse Lee Peterson live again. Is that still on? I wouldn't call him a prominent right winger, just an absolute crazy one. That's not who I'm talking about. I would be up for doing another thing with Jesse Lee Peterson. My audience loved it, and I don't take it seriously. It's just a goof. It's fun. There's nothing planned right now, but there is an idea. There's an idea for a possible event with Jesse Lee Peterson sometime during 2019. And rest assured, I will tell you what it is at the earliest possible opportunity. Jamie Cravens says, just to thank you, David, I've started the Minneapolis-St. Paul Yang Gang in part due to your interviews with Andrew Yang. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Matthew Upchurch says, help me weigh this out. On one hand, Trump's attempts to block the Time Warner AT&T merger represent interfering with free speech as far as CNN is concerned, and DOJ interference. On the other hand, antitrust issue. Yeah, so Matthew, here's the deal with the AT&T Time Warner merger. As progressives, we should be against the heavy media consolidation that has taken place in the last 20 years. We should be against such a huge portion of all media being controlled by so few companies. And on an antitrust basis, these mergers should be prevented. That being said, the president can't, for political reasons, be interfering with individual mergers. It's improper. It's a potentially impeachable offense. And so progressives just have to be able to explain that. We are against the AT&T Time Warner merger, but it can't be because Trump doesn't like CNN. It's just that's hugely problematic. Okay, let's see who we're going to next on the phone. Let's go to the 703 area code, a caller from 703, which I think is Virginia. Who's there?
Yeah, David.
Yes, who's this?
Yes, Northern Virginia. So my question was in terms of the Electoral College and whether progressives should push to either abolish it or reform it.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about a way that it could somehow go between the middle of just abolishing it or just keeping it the same.
Okay.
So what do you think of the idea of making it so that instead of the majority of the vote, whoever it goes to, winning each state, what do you think of the I guess the electoral college. I don't know what you call them. I guess the electorate or whatever.
Electors.
Electors, yeah. What do you think of them going proportionally to how the people in the state vote? So, like, if Texas had 50 electoral votes, and let's say 60% of Texas went to Trump and 40% went to Clinton, then the 60% of the 50 electoral votes would go in Trump's column, and the 40% of the 50 go into Clinton's column, and just do it proportionally instead of a winner take all for each
Yep,
state.
that's a totally
So really,
reasonable idea. I mean, either way, here's the sort of foundation for what you're suggesting. States have a lot of power to decide how they award electors. There are a couple states, I believe, who already do what you're suggesting. They're just very small. Like I think it's Maine and Nebraska, maybe. I'm going from memory. It's not enough to really make a difference, but that's a totally reasonable thing to do. The problem with it is that in some small states, there's not that many ways that you can divide it. So like if you have a 55-45 versus 52-48 versus 58-42, you don't have enough electors to slice it that thinly. So from a mathematical perspective, it may sort of not really move the needle one way or the other and kind of end up just kind of being a dud in the middle there. But that's a totally reasonable idea. Either way, though, the thing is, either way, whether a state says we will award all electors to the winner of the popular vote or we will award electors proportionately, either way, these are decisions that each state needs to make, which they can do, but you still have to get them to do it.
right, and conservatives always say, oh, if you abolish the electoral college, then people won't focus as much on the smaller states or the ones in more not on the coast. But the thing is that those states are already just not campaigned in or given any thought to because they're always just go to straight Republican. So I feel like if they were more proportionally distributed, the electors based on who votes for who in those states, it really makes it so that every citizen would get a chance. If you're in a solid blue state or a solid red state, I mean, even the red conservatives in California would then have more incentive to go out and vote. So I feel like it would benefit everyone in the end.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. And yeah, I mean, I don't like the argument at this point that the Electoral College prevents the small states from being ignored because, okay, so the population centers now are basically ignored. And with media the way it now exists, things have changed so much from how things were when the Electoral College was established that it doesn't really matter if the candidate physically is in your state or in your city anymore in terms of learning about them. Obviously, not going to Wisconsin probably hurt Hillary Clinton in 2016. But from the point of view of you're not able to get information unless the candidate goes to your state, I mean, that's just not the way things work anymore.
Yeah. All right. That's all. Thanks,
Okay,
David.
great. Thanks for the call. Really appreciate it. Okay, we've got new member number 15 for the evening, John Martori. So I will tell you, supposedly I'm engaged to debate Candace Owens. And the details are still being worked out. I am not ready to announce more about the details yet because I guess it would just be inappropriate. I am sort of still unsure if it's a real thing because, as far as I know, she refused to debate me in a 2-on-2 thing at Politicon, Kyle Kulinski and I versus Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk. And just a few weeks ago, she tweeted to someone who asked about it that she doesn't know who David Parkman even is. Maybe she was playing coy. I don't know. But what I'm told is that the debate organizers and her people are basically on the same page that we're doing a debate. And when I have more information, I will tell you about it. It will probably be very, very interesting. James Dorn, could you start a new series that explains subjects like corporate welfare to people who might be new to progressive ideas? I like that idea, and we will explore that. Doug Conder says, you do not have a Spanish accent. Did you ever have one, or did you train yourself out? No, I moved to the U.S. when I was really young, so I learned English almost like a native speaker. I'm not aware of ever having had an accent in English. Alaska Vapor is a new member on YouTube. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We're taking calls at 617-830-4750. Let's go to Let's go to Brody. I haven't heard from Brody for a while, and he usually has pretty interesting calls. What's going on? By the way, which Brody is this? Because we have like
This
three
is
Brodies in our system.
can you hear me, David?
Yes, I can.
This is the Brody from Dallas.
Oh,
The
okay,
one
Brody
you
from
haven't heard
Dallas.
from
What's
at all.
going on?
Not much, man. Good to hear you. I had actually a question about what your thoughts were in terms of you've been following politics a long time about the dates and strategies that go around the announcement dates in terms of when a candidate announces. For example, we've seen Bernie and Kamala announce already, but we haven't seen like what we expect. I think you mentioned on today's show that I think it was you that you mentioned that Joe Biden. You would be surprised if he wasn't going to run. Is there any strategy behind when the candidates announce, or is it just kind of like when they build up their machines, when they kind of look at like who else is running? Like,
I think
are
it's
there any
all
benefits?
situational. I don't think there's any rule. So I don't think that it's the earlier the better. I don't think it's later is better because you sort of swoop in and everybody is becomes enamored with you. I think it depends on what is the sort of general sequence of events. How many other people have already announced? Do you have do you occupy a space on the political spectrum that would benefit from getting in earlier and trying to build support like Andrew Yang has done, who just needs to accumulate donations and name recognition? So I don't think there's any particular rule or strategy behind it. I think it's very situational year to year.
And do you think this year that we're going to have a lot more people announce as we get closer to the debates and sort of the end game, or do you think that we're
I
sort of
don't
going to
know. I
have?
mean, I think we're getting close to the limit. As far as the Democratic side, it's like how many more people? Soon there's going to be so many people running that there will be very little incentive to say, I'm going to mount a campaign, other than if you're Joe Biden, who's leading every poll already. I think it's going to be a pretty uphill battle.
And then I have one last question. Why is it that you think libertarians are obsessed with like the idea that taxation is theft? Maybe do this
I
segment
have
on
no
today's
idea.
show.
I don't know why they're libertarians get
It's a
obsessed
mystery.
with strange things. And I mean, maybe they feel that that's one of their strongest arguments, that taxation is theft or slavery or whatever. But it's a very dumb argument. So they would be well served to pick something else soon.
Right on, man. All right, it's good to talk to you.
All right, Brody. Talk to you later. Okay, couple super chats here. Murphy says, "Oh, Captain, my captain, I am David Parkman." Thank you very much. Elias Tarachis says, 47 months for Paul Manafort. What are your thoughts? I did not know that. Let's see if I can pull up an article about it. Paul Manafort sentenced. Let's see what we've got. Okay, yeah, there it is. Ex-campaign manager Paul Manafort sentenced to 47 months for fraud in Mueller case. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Not even 4 years. I'm quite frankly disgusted by it. I think I need to read more about it. Like, as it says here, he was seated in a wheelchair, and I guess he's now having all sorts of health problems. Was that a factor in the sentence? He potentially faced like up to 20 something years, which would have effectively been a life sentence for him. My instinct is absolutely vile, and I want to read more about that, and we'll have coverage on the show. Okay, let me take another phone call, and then we'll do other super chats. Let's go to, I think I'm going to Miles. It's an Arizona area code, although maybe it's not. Who's this from Arizona?
Hey, David.
Oh boy. You're
it's
breaking up.
Miles.
Who's this? What's your name?
It's Miles.
It is Miles. Okay, what's going on, Miles?
Okay, so first question is, who did the best at interrogating Michael Cohen from last week?
I really liked Ro Khanna's line of questioning, but I don't know if it was the flashiest, but I am sort of partial to Ro. I liked what he brought up.
Sure, yeah. For me, it was Roe, but also AOC, I think, did a good job. And second, I want to so Venezuela, you mentioned the Leninist left, and Venezuela and Maduro apologist, and what exactly, are there more factions of the far left than just progressives? Like, are there factions within the progressive faction?
I mean, I think so. If you're asking me to name all of them, it would be tough. But yeah, I mean, in the same way that you've got social conservatives, pro business, low tax Republicans, libertarian Republicans, the sort of like neo Nazi alt right type stuff. I mean, yeah, you've also got factions within the left, but I don't know that I've thought enough about exactly where the lines would be. I mean, I think the actual socialist left would be an angle. People who are not social democrats, but actual socialists. You've got the Leninist left that tends to do things like criticize Venezuela, rather defend Maduro and Chavez, defend Bashar al-Assad, defend Vladimir Putin. That's sort of what I sometimes call the Leninist left. Yeah, I mean, there are factions, but I'd have to think about what the full scope of them are.
Interesting. Before I just would like to mention one last thing. Felix Sater will be testifying next week, I believe the 14th. So just more interesting things to come. I will say that.
No question. I think it's going to be
That's
an
it.
interesting couple of years. Thanks, Miles. Great to hear from Miles from Arizona. The couple super chats to mention, Frog Thoven or Frog Oven says, "Hi, David. Love your show and appreciate your thoughtful commentary. What are your feelings on the so-called horseshoe theory of politics?" So horseshoe theory of politics, if I understand it correctly, is the idea that the spectrum is more of a horseshoe than a line. So if it were a line, you would imagine that the further left you go, the further away you are from the far right. Horseshoe theory suggests that once you get to the extremes on either side, it sort of starts to wrap around as it may be, and the extreme far left is similar to the extreme far right. I think that I I agree that you end up getting some degree of agreement. I'm sort of struggling with how to say it. You sometimes end up getting people on the far left who agree with people on the far right, but for politically disparate reasons. So, like, an example would be, this is not an example of far left and far right, but like the anti-vax movement has a left-wing component, which is skeptical of big pharma, and then it has a right-wing component, which is skeptical of government. And for different reasons, they're against vaccines, and they end up united kind of across the political spectrum, but it's not for the same motivations, and it's not because they share values. So I think the horseshoe theory is interesting. I think it accurately describes some situations and not others. Ido Punti says, "David, how do you think the space program will be shaped according to Democratic Republican candidate?" Well, if Republicans get their say, the space program will be geared around acquisition of resources and space force type stuff. If the left gets its way, my hope is it will be based around scientific learning and understanding, helping to improve the odds of humans surviving on planet Earth. And those are much more, those values are more in line with what I would like to see. But I think there will be certainly differences in terms of space exploration, depending on which side gets to make decisions. Let's go to our caller from the 347 area code. Caller from 347, who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, David, this is Karem. I'm calling from Boston, actually.
Oh, hey, Karam, what's going on?
Hey, I wanted to kind of ask you about the future of kind of the political environment. I was thinking about, I mean, we're starting to see people who kind of grew up in a millennial era, like AOC and others, get elected. But in 20, 30 years, when many congressmen and women have kind of grown up being on social media, having a lot of what they say pretty much recorded online, even like Snapchat videos and other stuff just in the mix, part of who they were growing up. How is that going to shape, how do you think that's going to shape the political environment and kind of what politics becomes? I feel like it's going to have a huge impact and really change what we know politics is today.
Absolutely, but this always happens. And here's the one sort of caution I would throw out there. If you compare the average political beliefs of a 65-year-old to those of a 25-year-old at the same time, people who are 65 and then people who are 25, there is this huge canyon between them on many issues that are generational issues. So we get the idea that as soon as the 25-year-olds are in power instead of the 65-year-olds, everything is going to just change. It's going to be a 180-degree U-turn. In reality,
Mhm.
some of what shapes the 65-year-old's point of view is being 40 years older than the 25-year-old. And so there is no question that as people in my generation become members of Congress, of the House, of the Senate, eventually there will be presidents from my generation, presumably, unless somehow it gets skipped. I don't know. Um, we shouldn't overstate the radical way in which it will change politics. Like, it's not going to be irrecognizable, but you're certainly going to start to have, people in power who grew up with computers and smartphones from the time that they were kids. You're going to have people in power who started work around the time of the 2008 recession. And all of that is going to shape the perspective. But I just think we shouldn't go overboard assuming the radical nature of what the change will be.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was thinking also along the lines of like, if Snapchat had been around while, like what Kavanaugh was accused of while during that era, if Snapchat had been around, there'd be a lot more evidence about what people couldn't agree on, like where the party was, stuff like that. When it comes to like scandals and what politicians say behind closed doors, I feel like there will be kind of a significant impact.
Couldn't
Just
agree with you
because,
more. Couldn't agree with you more,
yeah,
but it's important not to, it's like we talk about demographic changes are going to make it so that a Republican never wins in Texas again. The reality is things move much more slowly, things move much less acutely. There will be counter forces to demographic changes in Texas. So, let's be realistic about our predictions.
for sure. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. Okay, let's go to a super chat from Brian Coldy. I'm kind of like weirdly related to Brian Coldy by marriage in a way, even though I'm not married. It's a long story for a different day. Love the show, Dave. Keep up the great work. The judge for Manafort thought that punishment was too harsh. Hopefully his next sentencing goes better. Oh, he thought he thought that the 20-year recommendation was too harsh, or thought that 47 months was too harsh. And that's a good point. There's going to be more than one sentencing, which I had forgotten about. This is not the end for Paul Manafort by any means, in any way, shape, or form. Let's go to our caller from the 248 area code who's been holding for a while. Who's calling from 248 today?
Hey, David, this is Robbie from Detroit.
Hey, Robbie, what's going on?
Just hanging out. Recently stumbled on your show on YouTube.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I had a question for you. What are your thoughts on new atheism? And are you an atheist yourself? And why, and so forth?
Okay. So let's see. My thoughts on new atheism. So let's see. It's sort of hard to explain. I am very in line with a lot of the ideas of new atheism. I sort of quantify my religious views as I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. And as soon as there's a reason to believe in a God, I will. I am just as open to the idea that we live in a simulation, that we, brain in a vat stuff. It all seems more plausible than the idea that there's a man in the sky who does all the stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So those are my personal views. That being said, I think new atheism misses the boat on religion in one particular way, which is it doesn't really address in what I consider to be a serious manner the evolutionary advantages in history to religious belief. And new atheism, from what I've read of it, and I've read a fair amount, although not everything that's out there, new atheism sort of characterizes, and again, this is my understanding. If I'm mischaracterizing, please let me know. It characterizes religion as almost like a parasite or a virus. And I think that there are, the God delusion and the God virus, or there's all these allusions to that have been made by a lot of new atheists. And I think that that's misguided. I think if we understand human history, we recognize that there was an evolutionary advantage to religion. It allowed people to coordinate and work together and cooperate in groups that were larger than what was previously possible based on shared values, and you were probably better off and sort of evolutionarily more likely to survive if you were a believer for many points in human history. I no longer think that that's the case in the modern West. I don't think at this point, for example, I am at a disadvantage in terms of how likely I am to be able to cooperate with other people because I'm not religious. But I think at a certain point that was the case. And I've not seen new atheism really do that justice.
Yeah, fair points. All right, one last question.
Sure.
And it's kind of swinging back to politics. You've spoken on potential candidates. I want to know what you think about potential vice presidential candidates for the left.
Honestly, not even thinking about it. I know a lot of people talk about Tulsi. I'm not into Tulsi, so I'd rather her not see her on the ticket. But beyond that, I'm really not thinking about VP yet, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Beto, and I think he'd be really good as a VP.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I would be open to that, but I really just haven't, as you can probably tell, I've not given it enough thought yet. Appreciate the call. Great to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Okay. Let's see. Sam Dean sends a super chat. G'day, mate. I was wondering if you're aware of the Cardinal George Pell case, and if so, what your opinion was, if any. I'm proud of us for going and getting him from the Vatican. Cheers from Oz. I have passing awareness of it. Great that, we got him, as they like to say, but I have not followed it as closely as maybe I should in order to give more of an opinion. Bizwiz says, what would it take for Puerto Rico to have voting rights in our general election? Think they'd want it? Trump's handling of Hurricane Maria was awful. Well, becoming a state would be the most direct path, Bizwiz, for Puerto Rico. I don't know, other than that, what there would be. So I think statehood would basically be the way forward. I do think that they would want it. They might not want statehood, but I think they would want voting rights in the general election. Okay, that does it for me. I've got to go and do a whole bunch of stuff. Appreciate everybody who joined me. Sorry I didn't get to everybody who's holding, but I will take calls again. I will live stream again.